County Law Library. Can I get the brief for this case? And we'd grab the fiche, in the old days, print it out. Now we download the pages and send them, but for current briefs, it's just so much easier.
Oh, we are live a few minutes before the hour. I just turned us on. Karen and I so far have been talking about dated material. The frustration of the folks we work with who can't find the 1950 Carl Llewellyn article or the
or whatever it was. Yeah.
Century legislative history. Not everything has been digitized.
Yeah.
Where do you go for that? I mean, do you go to the Library of Congress if you want legislation? I mean, there is a dusty box somewhere where
right.
Materials, and that's
we don't get a lot of requests for federal legislative history, but yeah, I mean, that's what I would do. There is an online product called ProQuest.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know ProQuest Congressional and some of the local law libraries. I think the University of Minnesota has it. We don't have it here. It's possible that the law schools have it. And ProQuest will get you quite a ways down the road. And then, Mike, you and I were mentioning some big pieces of legislation have compiled legislative histories already. And you can search for those on all flavors of databases you can access. So, like the bankruptcy code and tax codes, you'll sometimes find legislative histories of those. But otherwise, yeah, you get as far as you can get, and then you I'd probably contact Library of Congress or the Law Library of Congress and ask them what to do.
Yeah, we do have the phone.
Yes, that's right. And in Minnesota, likewise, go to the legislative website. They've digitized a lot of the past journals of the House and Senate. Not everything, but a lot. If you have current legislation, you can do, I think, pretty much everything online and pull things up. But then you get into that time in the past where it's too far, it's too long ago. And then you can do some work online. You can do some additional steps at our law library, but almost always you end up at the Legislative Reference Library. And then sometimes you get sent to the Minnesota Historical Society.
I want you to walk me through that step. I don't know if folks know about this. I have a Hennepin County library, not law library, just regular library card, and these online resources are amazing. Let's see, I think ProQuest is available maybe from that first one even. I forget if there's just a general ProQuest. Here it is.
I think they have a general ProQuest. Oh, and then they have ProQuest Congressional.
Oh, is that the one we want there?
Yeah, that's what I would go to for legislative history. At least get started. I think there might be a variety of plans in terms of comprehensiveness. But yeah, I've gone there too. You need your library card.
Your 14-digit barcode.
Yeah. I saw you look down. I was going to accuse you of memorizing your barcode.
No, I do know that. Yeah, my insulin pump is a trigger. So.
Oh, no. You do know your barcode. That's a sign of a true nerd, Mike.
Yeah, that's right.
That's one of the red flags.
Here it is. Free of charge. The online resources from the Hennepin County Library are pretty amazing. I'm sure other counties have similar resources, but
similar, but I think Hennepin County Library, certainly in Minnesota, have the largest and most comprehensive list of databases. And this is a great one. And their newspaper databases are also really robust.
Yeah. You can get the current edition of the Wall Street Journal. I mean, it's much easier to have a subscription, I have to say.
Oh, yes.
But you have to do a search here, or but they do have things like industry reports A Westlaw, those are, something like $10 a page now. And I think they were $6 a page when I was there, many years ago, but expensive. Those industry reports,
Right.
market reports, are great. And then you can get some of those through some of these online resources here.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'm just at this first item here. But again, that's also current information.
Yeah.
The more recent, the easier it is to find. I was looking, because of, are you a Twitter user?
Not much, but wow, I was sure surprised that Elon Musk went through with it.
I looked up my Twitter account. I'm not a big, I hardly ever log in. I think, but I was on way back in 2009.
Oh, wow.
And you see by my profile picture there that's 20 years old.
Yeah, it looks like you haven't tweeted in a while.
Yeah,
4 years.
I have not. But I was interested in doing could I find my original tweets from, and I could not.
Yeah.
And I think the reason is, and there is, you can do advanced search in Twitter, which is pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah.
Because you can do quite sophisticated, just a simple, form to fill out, and you can do the date range. So I did a date range search on my tweets from 2009, and I know that when I signed up, I was kind of playing around with it. But I think at that time you could limit it to just and I don't know if that's a thing you can do now. I didn't find them, and I don't think it's like what we were talking about. It's just too old, right? But I think it was limited to public-facing tweets, and at that time it was limited to my followers.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, I just kind of interesting to note that you're not going to find everything with a search.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting. These platforms are. Yeah, there's something. Well, social media has really changed how attorneys do people searching as well. And you're, I don't know, looking into a potential new client, or all those insurance investigations.
Yeah.
You people claiming disability, and then you find them, hang gliding and posting on Facebook on the public. You can just browse and find them. So. Yeah.
You get people asking about searching on social at all? I have not had a lot.
No, not a whole lot. I think people feel like they know how to do that, but my colleagues who work in law firms are asked sometimes. And they especially used to be when older lawyers were not as familiar with social media and how to search it. They tend to search just the public-facing stuff. They're not trying to. There are all these ethics questions about asking to be someone's friend and then going in and finding more private material. And I don't read about that much anymore. I think it's pretty settled that you're not supposed to do that. But yeah, I think they routinely run quick LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter searches, kind of see what people are up to.
I know there are good CLEs on just like forensic investigation, on doing a deeper dive into some of these resources. But I have I used to have a subscription to like TweetDeck, and this I used to be in pretty regularly, not because I was posting, obviously, but these like Hootsuite, TweetDeck, I sort of like them for current awareness type of research, where you just run a query. And this is TweetDeck, but on Hootsuite, I think you can run it across a variety of platforms for LinkedIn, and if you're an active poster, it's great because you can sort of post and schedule posts, and which is kind of nice. But I sort of liked it for the current awareness. Get tips from doing just a keyword search, and get an alert in these stacked columns. I thought were kind of nice.
Yeah.
I did that quite a bit, but we'll have to see if Elon is fired A lot of people to start with.
Yes, yeah, he must have quite the business plan.
Yeah.
Scorched earth so far.
Hey, we forgot to introduce ourselves. Welcome everyone to Gray Matter. We answer the question each week, what is the most interesting legal research question of the week? I'm Mike Carlson. I'm a researcher at Gray Paper Legal.
I'm Karen Westwood. I'm director of the Hennepin County Law Library.
Welcome. So far, we've been talking about finding old materials that may or may not have been digitized, and including stuff we couldn't find on Twitter, which has been digitized, but
right, born digital, right?
Still not digitized.
Yeah,
find it.
Yeah. I was telling Mike that it isn't a particularly fascinating research question, but it's something that I have to remind myself of often. And I get these questions regularly. And so I'm sympathetic to the attorney, like the one who called me last week and said, hey, I'm trying to find the appellate brief from this Minnesota case. So I went to all my standard places and couldn't find it, and then realized the case was from 1992. And it's going to be hard to find the briefing from that. In the case of Minnesota cases, the Minnesota State Law Library collects the briefs in print. They used to create then a microfiche set of those briefs and sell them to county law libraries. So we have those on microfiche too, but they haven't done that now since the briefs are available online. And just there's just a gap there between sort of, I think some libraries and agencies have gone back and digitized really old historic kind of archival material as a way of preserving it if the physical copies are deteriorating. But there's that vast middle that I don't see what the kind of the business case would be to go back and digitize those. So if you can't find what you think you should be able to find, remember to look at that date.
Yeah, and some of the stuff you can get for free, something like oh gosh, am I blanking on the name? But like some of the foundational legal texts.
Oh,
you can find for free on Amazon, even. The black why am I blanking? It's a Friday morning. And
Blackstone's Commentaries.
Blackstone's Commentaries. Thank you.
Hey, wow, that's pretty good. Read your mind, Mike.
Blackstone just didn't sound right to me this morning. I don't know. $450 from Amazon, but I know there is a PDF of this out there. I downloaded it to my Kindle once. It's totally
just for some light reading.
Yeah. But with the copyright law going back so far, I forget the date. It's like 1923, I think, where you can be assured that if it predates 1923, it's got to be in the public domain.
Right.
After that, you've got to consider renewals and all manner of other things. And the term is just, so long. So the business case you say about digitizing, and it's some of the, for government works, pleadings, we got new law on that. So some of those things can be found. But for other materials, which you think are quite old, you think they'd be easier to find even. But yeah, it's got to rise to the level of Blackstone in order for it to be
Yes. Yeah. So Mike, what is your your casual, in the back of your brain cutoff for when you think, I wonder if that's too old, I'm going to check a different place?
I don't really have one. I mean, I guess it depends on the materials.
It does. Yep. For law reviews and journals on Westlaw and Lexis, in the past, it was 1985. And that date is just
that's right.
locked in to me. And I don't know if that's still true, but that's always, if a law review is older than 1985, I'll just try someplace else. I don't think I'll find it on Westlaw or Lexis. And then for anything having to do with Minnesota courts, I usually, and most other things, actually, it's like the mid 1990s, because I just remember that's when a lot of things were coming on, and it varied from court to court, but things were really blowing open in the maybe early to mid 90s. So that's my cutoff.
That makes
1996.
there's one of those we were talking about Carl Llewellyn's speeches here where you couldn't find it because it was also, just again, this is right in that area. It was what, 1950 presentation, so kind of in that realm
Right.
of copyrightable subject matter, not in the public domain, hard to find. It is in print, but that's something you're going to pay for, and it seems like the kind of thing you should just be able to see in print somewhere, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I had that. There's this other. It's not maybe to the level of the Blackstone commentaries, but so there's this article that I'm looking for. I can never find for free. It's from 1968. Gina and Edgar Kahn. Do you know this one? They wrote this article called had to do with the civilian approach to the war on poverty, which was an argument for legal aid. So in the war on poverty, they formed the Office of Economic Opportunity, and it included legal aid. It was through their efforts that that legal aid became part of the war on poverty. And they had this really, what I found a compelling argument for sort of framing, we have the war on drugs, war on poverty, and why that's a bad idea. Back in 1968, they were talking about, using war as a metaphor.
Right.
Very plain spoken. Anyway, I love that article, and civilian approach. And and it's something I feel like I should just be in the public domain. It's that kind of value.
Where have you been able to find it? Was it published in a law journal, or was it a social science?
I think it was a Yale Law Review article.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right, but I know what you mean, Mike, because we do on occasion find people who've taken these articles and just downloaded a PDF, and then they're available. And I feel a little, I'm not sure how to feel about that when someone asks me for an article that's behind a paywall, but I can go in the back door and find that someone has just copied it and loaded it up. I provide it to our patrons, but I have a little twinge when I do it.
Yeah. That's called contributory copyright infringement, right?
Yeah, it's kind of problematic, but
you're encouraging
me.
the
Here I am, live stream advertising.
I forgot that. What was that? The Napster case had the phrase.
That's right.
It's not encouraging. It's support. I can't remember. It was a footnote there, I think, in the Napster Supreme Court case, which
abetting maybe.
yeah, something like that. Easy enough to find though. Here it is. I mean, just from a Google search from the Digital Commons.
Yeah.
But in the past, when I've been looking for this, like, where is it? And kind of bouncing around because I know it's available for free somewhere. And
yeah, and that's another thing. What may have been really difficult to find when you were looking for it 5 years ago, all of a sudden is out there and easy.
Yeah.
But
do you use any kind of like document management system just for your own files? Use like a Google Drive or for materials you want to hang on to?
No, we do have a shared drive in the law library where we used to put items that were really hard to run down, but I feel like we don't get so many repeat questions anymore. Yeah. And back in the old days, we had a physical file. Everyone's asking for this article, or back then it was more difficult to come up with like district court pleading documents, and there would become something quite popular, and then we would make a physical copy and keep it. Probably would be good to have some sort of knowledge management database in the law library, but we find our questions are so varied that we don't get the same one more than once anymore.
I do have believe it or not, I have a folder.
A physical file. I believe
it. For some articles like these that are just my like go-to resources, like what was that? And right. I've got on my desk where I can just grab it and thumb through it. I still have paper, but items like this I return to quite regularly for whatever, just inspiration or reminder or I always struggle to get back to it. So I don't have a solution myself for,
Yeah.
which I should,
But we
digitize.
we did do one thing that I thought was a little bit creative. For years, of course, we've had Webster's Third New International Dictionary at the law library, large, oversized dictionary. But attorneys call, that's a reputable dictionary, and they want a definition of a word out of it. Well,
Yeah.
sometime over the years, we lost the title page in Verso. And so when they want to cite it, we don't have the copyright information. And there
Oh.
are many, many editions of the Third New International. And we found another library that had the very same one we did, and we had them scan the page and we tipped it into the dictionary, you tape it in. Somehow that went missing. So we ordered a new copy of the dictionary. It was all tattered anyhow. And then one of our librarians took a scan of the title page and the Verso and just loaded it right into the library record. So there's a
So it
little
can be
tab that
cited.
says notes.
That's
So
cheers to the library. That is a librarian thing to do right there.
I know,
Of course.
and it was just like, it's such a beautiful thing. So now someone asks for a definition, we have to heave this big dictionary over and scan that page, but not the title page in Verso. So yeah. The little things that make life easier.
If I'm not mistaken,
I thought they had the OED.
I thought they did.
I wonder. That's the other thing about
There it
databases at libraries is sometimes they come and go, right? The library can't afford it.
Yeah.
after
They
some
this
time.
used to have corporate family trees in it as well, and that's a
Yeah.
resource that I used to use quite a bit.
Now we all know your barcode, Mike.
I
But we
know.
don't know your PIN,
You know
so
my
we can't.
4-digit PIN. Yeah, so if you want to go to head with Brian Garner or something like that, you can
Right.
you do your search.
OED, yeah.
OED, yeah. What does the OED cost if you wanted to purchase that for the law library?
Print. I don't know. I wonder how many volumes it is now. That used to be, right, a standard scholarly
Mhm.
source that all large, university libraries had in print. But online
By a
would be the
legal
way to go.
term. An antiquated legal term.
Yeah,
Speaking
look
of
at you pull that
things.
one out of your hat.
Yeah, so I use that one as an example, obviously, from time to time. French, desuetude, 1596.
Yeah.
A discontinuance of the use or practice of anything. Yeah, so
Disuse. Yeah.
it is a fun resource. So
Yeah.
look at this. This is a resource I'm not familiar. Frequency in current use.
Oh,
It's got a level 3 even on it. Isn't that interesting?
wow. Well, now you have to search something that we think is in a lot of use currently. I'm gonna
Yeah, you know
search
what's
Twitter.
not in Black's dictionary is the term e-discovery.
Oh, that hasn't made it into Black's yet?
It has not.
Wow.
I was listening to when the last edition came out, I was listening to a podcast. Somebody asked him. He's like, no, actually,
Yeah.
we didn't include it.
And I'm not surprised that it's not in the OED.
Yeah.
That one.
I mean, in terms like, wait a minute.
Huh. Oh, interesting. So that particular use of Twitter looks like it's more popular.
That's
whichever one
actually
that
recent. Yeah,
was.
which one is the most frequently? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
A purulent fistula at the coronet of a horse's foot.
Wow. That's not getting much use, but Twitter, as of a bird to give a call, gets more use. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, that we've talked a couple of times this morning about using public library resources, and it's a good thing to remember that you do have access to a lot of a lot of material through public libraries, and they do these shared consortial agreements. So sometimes on this list of databases here in Hennepin County, you'll see like it's part of the MELSA libraries. And that means all of these metropolitan libraries in the Twin Cities will have that same database available to their users. And we know, from law practice, sometimes the legal research is the easiest research because it's what we do and we're really familiar. It's when, I don't know, you're working on antitrust and you have to evaluate the carpet laying industry or something, and you just don't even know where to start. And that's where a public library might have some databases to get you oriented.
Yeah, it's interesting. They when I went to graduate school, we were required to do a course just on regular library research, and I was like, I don't need that. I mean, how long have I been doing? Well, I was introduced to the front matter of a text. I'm like, oh my God, there's a whole taxonomy of subject matter that you can use to find. I'm like, I had no idea. And I got quite a schooling there, and it was. I mean, there's things to learn from all across the.
Right. Yeah. There's industry codes, if you're doing business research.
Yeah.
In the sciences, there's all kinds of codification and taxonomies around, scientific materials. So don't forget about your public libraries and your large, like land grant universities. They have specialized researchers who can help you with things.
Speaking of libraries and librarians, you were in Duluth giving a presentation yesterday.
I was at the Minnesota Library Association annual meeting held up at the convention center in Duluth. I gave two presentations. They weren't very heavily research oriented. One was with a staff member from Legal Aid Services of Northeastern Minnesota, LASNM.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this legal kiosk project that Civil Legal Aid launched during COVID. They got CARES Act funding, got these little computer setups that they tried to get out into the community. And they have found in the couple of years that it's been operational that public libraries are really some of their best partners in that, because they have regular hours, they have librarians who are used to helping people get online. They often have space. They're a trusted resource in the community and are well known. So we were kind of trying to promote that to get more public libraries on board with that. So that was interesting. And then in the afternoon, I did a little session on how to make a good attorney referral when research isn't enough. Because we find in law libraries, and I think they find that in public libraries especially, too, that people come in and they're like going to do their own, whatever it is, set up a special needs trust or something. Then they start reading about it and they realize, you know what, maybe I do need an attorney. And then they ask me in a public library setting, who would you recommend?
Yes.
I say, well, I can't endorse an attorney, but for most of us, including me, when do we have occasion to hire an attorney? How do you do that? People don't know. I mean, they don't think about how you're interviewing an attorney as well as the attorney interviewing you. And then fee arrangements are weird for attorneys. Like, in what other area do you have a retainer agreement? That's just, I feel like it's pretty unique. So I just kind of marched through some good Bar Association referral sources and that kind of practical advice about find a family member or a friend who is an attorney or has used an attorney and get referrals that way. So it was a fun session. It turns out no one else seemed to think they needed that. I think there were a dozen people in the room.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a really good one. It's in my office here, I give regular referrals. People are asking, for help on. People will send people down to my office. There aren't other attorneys in my building. I'm mostly full of artists here and other small businesses. And so I'm often referring people out. And, I was formerly with the Bar Association, so I have people in mind. I'm like, here's somebody I enjoyed working with, or, So I have the benefit of that past experience, but sometimes, securities or landlord, I guess, quite a few topic areas I have the people that I know, but if it's outside of your practice area, it's hard to kind of know how to do that. I recommend this.
Yep.
The most frequent calls that the bar association get is, I need a lawyer.
Right.
That's why when they redesigned their website a few years ago, they put the find a lawyer tool right on the front page.
Yep, on the front page. Yeah. And
is there
and
another
it is
resource
good.
that you recommended for finding?
Well, so the State Bar Association has that online lawyer directory, and you can put in, the kind of law you need, and then the city you're in, and how many miles. Yeah, this, and then it comes up with this great kind of page where you can look at what a lawyer has put in to including this pie chart that divides up their practice.
Yeah.
Say like they do 60% of their work in wills and estate planning or whatever. So I kind of marched through how to read that. But then the county bar associations, Hennepin and Ramsey, have a phone service. So we have two kinds of patrons. Like, there are kinds of people. Some people are not interested in doing this online and reading and interpreting that. They just want to talk to someone.
Yeah.
And some people, like librarians, are like, hey, I'd rather not talk to someone. I'm just going to do my own research and maybe call someone later. So we do refer people to this. I think it's called mnlawyerreferral.org.
I'm sorry, I browsed away from it here.
And they also have a great little pamphlet on that site that's called something like tips for working with an attorney, or how to, and it explains, you'll find it there. I'm pretty sure it's mnlawyerreferral.org these days, everything kind of points to law help, and there it is. And there's tips for hiring an attorney. You see across and I just think it has this great common sense approach. Like, remember what you're doing. Remember, you have to tell the attorney everything, or they can't help you, or they're going to waste your time and it's going to cost you more. And so it's just, and then they explain legal fees, what is a retainer, and why might you get a flat fee service for one thing and not for another. And I thought it was a fun session.
Yeah, I think these are super valuable resources. I know maybe not traditional legal research, but this is the kind of thing you want to find and have to deliver to your colleagues, and it's and to be able to give to clients or prospective clients. So
I think even if I was in practice and I was getting folks asking about an attorney, it might be nice to point them to this, say, hey, here are a few attorneys you might call, but take a look at this little brochure just to remind yourself of what you're doing. So
and it's not over after you hire them, right? I mean, you've got intake and there's all of that.
Right. Yeah. And then to kind of, I think further down on this page, it establishes a little more realistic expectations about time. Like, your lawyer is busy, so they're responsible for responding to you, but you shouldn't pester them. Give them a little time to reply. It's laid out much more clearly than that, but I really like that. They used to print this as a printed trifold brochure. And we would have it in the law library. Now people don't print things anymore, but we have it on the webpage. So that's what I've been up to. There is a lot of good energy. Librarians, professionals getting back together in person, as you were talking about last week.
It has been really nice.
We had a little table in the exhibit hall for the Minnesota Association of Law Libraries. And, my little line when people walk by was like, don't forget your law library. Well, it turns out I forget, of course, that there are children's librarians. They'd say, my preschoolers don't care about that during story time.
Yeah.
There were school librarians there. And, if you're not in the field, you forget. that librarians are in a lot of different environments. So it was fun to see. We do have a librarian look. It's a different look than you see at a lawyer meeting or
at a
even a law
CLE
librarian.
institute, or yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
I can call it out because I'm pretty sure I have that look myself. So,
you have a master of library sciences as well, correct?
Right.
That was your career path, and obviously because you're the director,
right.
Is
my first degree was the library science degree.
So you did it in the
Yeah.
other direction. I know folks who've done it the other way,
Right.
like, hey, I really like this. Folks like me who
Yep.
did it the other way, and
Yep.
though I don't have that, that's not my master's. But
Yeah.
so I'm curious, do they go old school? I always wondered what you got from that Master of Library Sciences that I didn't get from 10 years. Comes from
Yeah.
Reuters. Do you get like the here's what you need to think about if it's a 1952 document, or do they take you old school
Well, yeah, I mean, now you're putting me on the spot a little bit because my library degree is old.
Yeah.
So when I was, in library school, we were learning like how to build a database and how to create taxonomies and so forth, because things were just moving more, this was the late 80s. Things are moving online but the World Wide Web wasn't a thing that anybody, knew about. So, but these days, folks who get that master's in library science degree do a lot of online work. They're very sophisticated searchers, and they build websites, and they do all kinds of interesting things. I'm not sure how much they get the instruction about the way we used to do things. They get some of it, because they go work with physical materials for sure. But
yeah, I mean, and there are times, as we chatting about today, there are times where you want that old article,
right.
or and
yeah, and I think you learn a lot of that on the job. You go talk to someone more senior and say, look, this, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago with someone with their US Law Week citation, and they're like, I don't even know what this is. You talk to someone old like me to say, well, it used to be this newspaper
right
newsletter that came out in print.
There's that institutional knowledge that's hard to pass on,
right?
And I'm curious to know if that was something that's shared in
and I don't know how you capture that. You could try to write these things down, but honestly, who wants to read that? Or create some kind of searchable database. I don't know. Some things just get lost to the mists of time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all right.
That also true, right? If I don't have Blackstone on vellum, is that is it
right? How is
am
your
I
life still
losing the
rich?
experience of the true law experience? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
That's
not.
Right. Yeah.
I was gonna plug before we drop here. Yeah, we're at the bottom of the hour. I was gonna plug our colleague Mike Robach's work on, I think it's on Monday. Are you familiar with what he's got going on over at St. Thomas?
No, what is he doing these days?
He's got a curriculum. Usually don't like to Google live, but let's St. Thomas. Competency. There's.
Oh, so he's launching.
This is a free program for folks who might be interested. So this is about teaching technology competence at the law school. So this thing is loaded with librarians. So you probably recognize some of these folks. Here.
And he's pulling them from around the country. A fall symposium. Cool.
Yeah. The next Friday. We'll finish the present our pod right at the start of the program. So
he'll be busy getting ready. Otherwise, it would be great to have him on. Maybe we'll have him on the following week to talk about.
Say how did it go? What did you learn? And very, very interested in this topic. I know Mitchell Hamlin covered alternative pathways to the profession last year. This year, I guess, earlier in the year in May, and
Yeah.
we've chatted in the past with Allison Carroll from Pritzker, who's we've talked about the T-shaped lawyer and how she's created, her and her team from Northwestern have created the Delta model of lawyer competency.
Right.
Which is a 3 business knowledge, tech competency, and emotional intelligence is part of that, and
Yeah.
then this knowledge of the law.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how complex it's going, and Mike has gathered all of these librarians for next Friday's event.
Yeah. They keep talking about like clients requiring tech competency, of their attorneys and law firms requiring it, but I think that's more talk than action. Do you?
Yeah.
I feel like maybe during the pandemic, people kind of stepped up their tech game a little bit, but I just got the sense that lawyers felt like, look, I do law, that's my expertise, and someone else can handle the tech part. And I think those days are on their way out, don't you?
Yeah, it depends on what you refer to as tech competence, and I'm sure that's going to be a subject of the presentation. It's I mean, we've been talking about finding old material today, and sometimes that's relevant, right? Sometimes you want the legislative history from, and you need to know how to find that, so you think, well, that's that requires some technical expertise on your own, just to understand the scope and coverage of what happens in the digital world, right?
Right.
That has its own piece, but also things like, we talked about the legal tech assessment here on the pod in the past about, can you auto number
right?
Can you properly redact a PDF? You know how to do that?
Exactly. Yeah. Can you reorder a spreadsheet without, mixing things up? And
I once talked to the law management associate, some folks from that, so the way that the firms will do it is the larger firms, they'll monitor the activity of their attorneys, and if they see an attorney spent 2 hours on a project that should have taken them 10 minutes, they'll say, hey, look, here's how you do a pivot table, right? So they're and I asked those folks, what if they came prepared to do that when they at your firm? Wouldn't they be a more valuable team member if they could do all of that work? And they're like, no, we'll do that, we'll teach that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose really it's probably easier to teach someone how to create a pivot table or teach their assistant how to do it than it is to teach someone kind of that nuances of the law or client relations, those soft skills, or that that breadth of legal knowledge is a lot harder to teach on the job.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. I don't know why Michael Roback didn't tell me this was going
I
on.
know. Well, I think
I'm going to have to give him a hard time.
I
think
know.
I'll try to sign up.
I think I registered at. I'll be attending virtually, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
Last time I talked to Mike, he was super busy.
Oh, I'm sure putting together something like this is a pretty stressful enterprise. Yeah. Good.
Well, great. So we'll see you next week, Karen. And maybe at this event as well.
Perfect.
And thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thank you all. See you next week.
Karen. Take care now. Bye.